12 Kenyans are set to jet back from West Africa, and with Kenya seemingly preparing to send doctors and nurses to the Ebola-hit region, phrases like travel history and quarantine could become all too common here. On KTN Prime, we focus on Kenya's response and preparedness for Ebola.
Indeed, so all eyes will be on the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport as we await their arrival. And of course, on the backdrop of several assurances that Kenya is indeed able to deal with this. Also tonight, we'll be telling you about the back and forth in UDF. The expulsions that happened yesterday have been reversed. Plus, tonight, Yvonne Okwara will be hosting Devolution Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru, and they will be talking on several issues that touch on her ministry. You want to watch out for that interview. Thank you for joining us on KTN Prime. I'm Linda Ogutu. Our sign language interpreter at the bottom end of your screen is William Silla.
And I'm Ben Kitili. These are the top stories tonight.
All those with negative laboratory results will be allowed to proceed to their homes and requested to strictly self-quarantine themselves at home for 21 days.
Ready for Ebola, or are we? The plan as 12 Kenyans return from Liberia.
The law allows us to use our firearms in cases where officers are in imminent danger.
No let up in Baringo. Police boss puts raiders on notice.
No peace in a money Congress, or is it UDF? Tribunal reinstates fired officials.
Unajua hata kama mtoto anakosa si kuua ni kurekebisha.
And a fine for Gor Mahia, but is it enough to stem soccer hooliganism? Many thanks for joining us on KTN Prime. Now, 12 Kenyans are scheduled to arrive at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport tonight from Liberia. There has been lots of preparation and planning. Of course, those have been put in place, putting in mind that Liberia is the ground zero for Ebola. Catherine Romando has been working on this story. Catherine, what do we know so far?
Thank you, Linda. What we know so far is that these Kenyans are coming in a public flight and not a chartered flight as we had earlier anticipated. So this public flight also has other individuals from Brussels, especially because the plane was leaving Monrovia, and from Monrovia it went to Brussels, and from Brussels that's when it will arrive here. It will arrive at around 11:25 p.m. tonight. So family members of these Kenyans cannot meet their loved ones until they are screened, until they're tested, and until they give their home addresses. They will be spending the night at the international airport where there has been a ward that has been, especially dedicated to them. It's been divided into a male section and a female section where they'll spend the night. And according to the Cabinet Secretary, James Macharia, this should be like a hotel for them because they need to do the tests, and the tests will come in probably tomorrow, mid-morning or afternoon. So that's the only time that they can be released into the public, and with no fear that they will spread. But what came out today when we did speak to the Cabinet Secretary is that they don't want these Kenyans to be victimized. These are the last Kenyans who were in Liberia. The others managed to find their way into the country or into other countries, but they don't want these people to be victimized, and because of the fear surrounding Ebola. Now, we did talk to the Cabinet Secretary earlier, as well as look at the isolation ward at Kenyatta National Hospital, which is the main isolation ward, and this is what we packaged for you. At 11:25 p.m., 12 Kenyans from Liberia will touch down. This will be the first flight from Liberia since Kenya banned flights to and from West Africa.
Flight is not originating from the three countries. Yeah. It's actually originating from Belgium, Brussels, because these Kenyans were taken from Liberia to Brussels. So the passengers who will be on that flight, they're not from those countries.
Before you fly to enter any aircraft, we have what we call International Air Transport Association, that IATA, that provides guidelines in terms of who can be able to fly in a public aircraft, like the way they will come. And one of the conditionalities is that they must be screened before boarding.
These 12 were the remaining Kenyan citizens in Liberia. When they arrive, they will be tested thoroughly by medical personnel from the Kenyan Medical Research Institute, with their blood samples being taken for further analysis at KEMRI.
I think the test will take up to 12 hours. Hopefully to be faster than that. So we believe that tomorrow, if you take them by midnight, tomorrow by noon, we should be getting all the results. But we shall ask KEMRI to fast track the process. We have asked KEMRI, actually, technical people to be at the airport as well.
That means that by 12 p.m. tomorrow, if they're all tested negative, they will be allowed to go home. However, there are caveats.
All those with negative laboratory results will be allowed to proceed to their homes and requested to strictly self-quarantine themselves at home for 21 days.
If any of them test positive, they'll be brought here to the isolation ward in Kenyatta National Hospital and will be transferred in a body cover like the one you see on your screen. This makeshift ward will serve the purpose as the government constructs a permanent isolation ward. The current ward has the capacity to hold 6 suspected Ebola patients and 3 confirmed Ebola patients. So far, this ward has received 7 patients.
Majority were from Liberia. They had traveled, some were en route to India, and some were Kenyans who were coming back to be with their relatives.
The health workers assigned to this ward say they're ready, however, they're also human.
So there is no any person who will be willing to handle these patients because of the fear of contracting the disease and dying. And that's why a lot of emphasis is put on preventive measures, and that is the standard precautions.
What keeps them assured is that Ebola has not yet spread to Kenya.
The best strategy to avoid this disease coming here is to suppress it at source, which is meaning West Africa.
Kenya will send about 259 nurses and 41 doctors to Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea.
We are also going to look at the issue of life insurance for them, and also all the support system they require, including salaries. Should there be anybody infected, the African Union and the WHO are making arrangements for specialized hospitals.
Now, Ebola has affected at least 9,000 people and killed at least 4,000 people. And especially the most concern for the Kenyan government is the new outbreak in Congo that has affected 70 people and has killed at least 40. And they're keeping their eye out in the 34 border points to ensure that whoever comes in has been screened properly. Now, the country is also expecting 5 more people or 5 more Kenyans from Sierra Leone. And that will just, but mainly what the message was is that there's nothing to worry about so far, but then we will wait to see. Linda.
Indeed, Catherine, there is nothing to worry about. There has been several assurances that Kenya is able to deal with this. Catherine Omontho, thank you so much for keeping an eye on that. So remember, we have a team in place at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. We're waiting for the arrival of those 12 Kenyans. Now, that forms the basis of a big question. Tonight, we're focusing on Ebola, and we're asking, are you satisfied with Kenya's state of Ebola preparedness?
Tell us what you think. SMS your yes or no opinion to the number 22155. As always, you can also join that conversation online at Ben_Kitili, at Linda Ogutu, and at KTN Kenya. Now the news, Inspector General of Police David Kimayo says police may be forced to enforce the shoot-to-kill order in order to save lives and restore peace to parts of Baringo and Turkana counties following recent attacks by suspected Pokot raiders. Now, the warning came as fresh attacks in Chesitet and Chemolongos areas of Baringo left several houses, shops and classrooms burnt down. The attack occurred just days after 4 people, including 3 General Service Unit officers, were killed in a raid by suspected members of the Pokot community.
The latest attack happened 22 kilometers from the Tiati constituency headquarters, even as tension remained high in Kiserian area following the weekend attack by suspected members of the Pokot community that left 4 people dead. The wounds from the weekend raid are yet to heal for those who were lucky to survive the attack. Some residents are fleeing their homes for fear of further attacks. Others are under siege in their own homes, too scared to move. In some schools, learning has been paralyzed. In other schools, learning is going on amid fear. Residents say the attacks by suspected Pokot raiders on Turkana and Baringo have little to do with cattle rustling.
Wanajifanya ni wizi ya ng'ombe, lakini ni ardhi. Kwa mfano, sasa mahali tunaita Rukus, sijui ni karibu kilomita 30 kutoka hapa. Hawa ndio wanaishi saa hii. Yaani mahali wamekufukuza sisi, wanakuja kuishi hapo.
From 205 tumesukuma, vile mzee alisema. Tumetolewa kutoka Rugus, tumetolewa kutoka Noskuro.
The Inspector General of Police, David Kimayo, says no effort will be spared in safeguarding the lives of residents and restoring peace to affected areas.
That the law allows us to use our firearms in cases where officers are in imminent danger or other person's life is in danger. And I will repeat it again that we are going to use the same.
Baringo Senator Gideon Moy wants the government to address the boundary dispute to avoid future conflict in Baringo, Pokot and Turkana.
We need to involve the survey department in exactly marking out the beacons between Turkana and Baringo. This has been the cause of conflict, and we want it done once and for all so that we know, is Kapedo in Baringo, which we believe it's in, or where is it?
The conflict in parts of Baringo and Turkana following attacks by suspected Pokot raiders has left several people dead in the last 3 weeks. Rita Tinina, KTN.
Let's turn to politics. The Political Parties Tribunal has today overturned the expulsion of Senator Boni Khalwale, nominated Senator Martha Wangari, and controversial party chair Hassan Osman. The tribunal indicated that since there is a case pending before it, Musalia Mudavadi and any other member have no mandate to transact any business on behalf of the party. Betty Chalo reports.
The battle for who's boss in the United Democratic Front Party continued today, with yesterday's decision to expel a number of members being questioned by various factions. According to the Political Parties Tribunal, the decision to expel Kakamega Senator Boni Khalwale, nominated Senator Martha Wangari, and party chair Hassan Osman was termed as null and void following a case that is pending in court over the party's leadership. A statement sent to newsrooms by the tribunal read in part, the Registrar of Political Parties has been restrained from acting on the expulsion of 4 members by a faction of United Democratic Forum allied to party leader Musalia Mudavadi. Not only has the tribunal overturned yesterday's move, today the UDF National Executive Council, led by Secretary General Abraham Limo, came out guns blazing, rejecting the removal of the members from the party.
What happened in yesterday's meeting is a nullity, since the convening of the said meeting was unprocedural by the fact that the attendees were not bona fide members of the purported party organs, and their comments are null and void and cannot be taken seriously by any right-thinking member of UDF party.
They said that they were the official party officials and that Musalia Mudavadi and his said deputy Jeremiah Kioni did not have the authority to remove any member from the party. The 4 were unanimously expelled by delegates for allegedly flouting the party's constitution and indiscipline. The delegates met at the party's offices on Monday and resolved to reorganize the party in what has now become a long-running battle for control of the party between former officials led by Hassan Osman and those favored by party leader Musalia Mudavadi. Betty Kyalo, KTN.
Let's move away from UDF's troubles, shall we? Now, they are the new boys and girls in town. Fresh new look, extended mandate and demonstrated renewed energy. We are talking about the new National Youth Service. Relaunched on the 10th of September 2014, the service aims to transform and equip the youth toward contributing to the National Vision 2030. Almost sounds too good to be true, but is it? KTN's Sharon Momanyi delves deeper.
Energy, stamina, and a fresh youthful look. It is hard not to drift with the vigor of the newly graduated NYS servicemen. 4,000 recruits graduated during this year's passing out ceremony after a 6-month rigorous paramilitary training, a ceremony that also marked the relaunch of the service. Complete with new uniforms, a new flag, and even a new oath of allegiance, the 5-point vision for the new NYS stems from the Jubilee government's pledge of a transformative youth empowerment.
Our young people's potential must not be limited by useless ethnic and regional restrictions. Anyone willing to serve will have their reward.
Demonstrating that it's not all about ceremony, the servicemen would immediately get down to work. Led by Planning and Devolution Cabinet Secretary Anne Waigoro, the service activated a slum upgrade project in Kibra, a community development project that engaged 675 NYS servicemen and women working with the local youth of Kibra.
For every one National Youth Service, we will recruit about 4 or 5 local youth. So we expect to recruit about 2,000 youth to work together with us. They will be paid an income. Out of that income, we will retain about 30% of the daily income that they will get. That money will go into a circle and a cooperative. And thereafter, when we walk out of Kibera, they will be left with sustainable business enterprises.
It is a refreshing period for a service that has been in existence for 50 years. In line with government's plans to resocialize the youth, NYS servicemen and women will be expected to transfer knowledge and skills to the community who they will be working with. In a year, about 22,000 youth will be recruited to the NYS. In turn, they will be expected to, quote-unquote, disciple almost 230,000 youth annually. After service, this youth will then be organized into groups of 15 per squad, with a total of 323 squads per county. Borrowing from Rwanda and Ethiopia, the youth will be initiated into another of the government's projects, Nyumba Kumi. In addition to the ongoing slum upgrading program, the NYS will be involved in 6 other programs that include agricultural projects, dam and road construction, vector control, slum civil works, huduma kitchens, public security, and traffic control. However, the project that seems all rosy received resistance by Kibra MCAs, who called for the halt of the slum upgrade project, saying they were not consulted.
This not only causes anxiety and tension, but also locks out potential positive contribution and participation of the area leadership and residents.
Other concerns include the fear that the government is out to militarize the NYS. Sharon Momanyi, KTN.
You're watching KTN Prime, and we thank you for staying with us.
And the Devolution Secretary, Anne Waigoro, is with us in studio. She will be speaking to Yvonne Okwara on a myriad of issues. Yvonne.
Ben, Linda, thank you very much. We are joined by Cabinet Secretary, Devolution and Planning, Anne Waigoro. Thank you for joining us this evening. Let's start off from where Sharon's story has left off, with a bit of resistance to the relaunch of the NYS and some of those allegations of militarization of the youth in the country. Some say this is what happened in 1989 and that's why, you know, that's what happened then and it's a repeat of it now. Tell us your response to some of these claims.
Thank you for having me. On the question about the initial resistance, that again, I've always said, even including in other programs, you would expect that when you're initiating a program, any new initiative in any part of the country at this time, especially with the new devolved structure of government. But we have since resolved those issues, and as you're aware, we've been progressing fairly well in Kibera and have made good progress in not just cleaning, but ensuring that we are empowering the youth in Kibera through training. On the issue of the fear on militarizing the NYS, I think I need to clarify that we do not have, as a government, any official report from the NIS saying that they are concerned. So that was picked up by the media somewhere. We've tried to get the report. We can't find it. NIS, National Intelligence Service, does not have that official report. Having said that, anyone who would be concerned would probably just be concerned because they're not very clear of what the program entails. The paramilitary training that is going on in NYS has been carried out since 1964. It's exactly the same training that previously university graduates used to go through. So it does not involve the use of arms or ammunition at all. What it does, it inculcates a culture of discipline and perseverance and resilience and hard work and servitude. That is what is called paramilitary training. So it's not military in the fact that people are regimented and that they work in certain groups and they have leaders and they wear uniform. That's it. But there is no fear whatsoever that is legitimate with regard to the militarization
All right, so
NYS.
it's been relaunched this year. How would you say it's markedly different, the NYS that we see now, from the one that was there in the 80s?
A lot of thinking has gone to the restructuring of the NYS. There's a new 5-point plan now, which wasn't there before. Previously, there would be training, and even in the training, even the paramilitary training was quite different from the one that we're doing now. At that time, physical fitness was mostly one of the things that they looked into. They tried to build character, but it was not realigned, for example, to Chapter 6 of the Constitution and our values as outlined in our constitution. So what we've done is completely reprogrammed the paramilitary training to re-socialize the youth towards the value system that we have defined ourselves as Kenyans as the values that we would want to be defined by. Integrity, for example.
So it's more value-based system
it's
now,
a value-based paramilitary training.
All right.
Then we have a huge component on national service, which is what you see us doing in Kibera right now. You will see us across the country with various other programs. It wasn't there in that kind of format before. We've expanded the national service. It's expected that everybody who goes through paramilitary training will also go through the national service. Again, for the same reasons why we take people through paramilitary training. Before then, they go for their vocational training.
I'd like us to move to another issue. A deadline is looming very soon. By the end of this month, you hope to have completed the restructuring program, or rather assessing and the rationalization program within the civil service. Let's talk about the purpose of that, the end game with that. Is it just about counting people, okay, saying so-and-so really exists and so-and-so is a ghost worker and so-and-so does not exist? Let's talk about that process and what happens after the 31st of October.
Okay, as we've always said, this is an initiative of both levels of government. It's as a result of an agreement at the summit level where the national government and the county governments agreed that we need to look at our human resource capacities, mostly as a result of the devolution and the fact that we devolved quite a number of functions to the counties. So the main objective is actually to make an assessment of how many people we are, what skills that we hold in the public service, and where we are placed. And the reason we're doing that is so that we can be able to plan better and allocate resources appropriately. That's really the reason why we're doing it. Having said that, we cannot say that there hasn't been concerns, because our initial check of our systems showed that we had some integrity issues. and the issues of ghost workers had come. There was also issues of double registration, and so this exercise is also intended to ensure that our system is efficient and accurate.
So we intend to weed out those who shouldn't be there or who essentially do not exist. So what happens after the 31st? After the exercise has closed, what then? Because is it only just about weeding out ghost workers?
I've just responded and said that it's about capacities, and it's about knowing where the human resource capacity in government is placed, what skills we have in the government, what qualifications, academic qualifications, levels of experience, how many we really are. As a matter of fact.
Okay, I guess to sort of clarify my question is, will people then be moved around based on capacities? Is there going to be redeployment from one department to another based on the findings?
Yes, you would expect that, because if you remember at the beginning of this year, we got into an agreement with the county government to freeze recruitment until we finish the capacity, so that if they wanted any human resource, they would request from the national government, and then we'd be able to place them. That way we do not continue increasing our wage bill. We also intend to clean the database, because if people don't show up, that means they do not exist, and so we cannot authenticate whether they have really bona fide civil servants, and so we'll remove that from the payroll, and that saves us a lot of money. So
is there any point of recourse for those who may not show up but truly exist within the payroll for one reason or another? What happens to those who don't? Will you strike them off the payroll? Are they sacked? I know you've talked about this before, but just tell us what happens to those people who do not turn up.
We've asked our public servants to show up. The ones who exist have shown up. As I said, we've registered up over 94% or so. We are expecting to see a couple more before the end of the week, and we have said it very clearly that if you do not show up for registration, you will be deemed as not being in existence, because we know there are those that don't exist. So if, for example, we see you in the database and we don't see you physically, that means you really don't exist, and so you will be deemed to be a ghost worker.
Any form of recourse for others who may exist but for one reason or another not able to show up?
Able or will not show up, because there's two different categories of people. There are those people who are out of the country, for example, on long-term study leave, and there are those who are probably indisposed because they are unwell, and those again, your human resource department would have the details for that. So if they don't show up, they're in a special category. When they show up, they will be registered and they are known. But the ones who do not come for whatever reason, either they are not legitimately recruited in government, or they do not exist, they will not receive their salary as of November.
Okay, all right. Let's move to devolution. Government has emphasized its support for devolution, and of course your ministry being the custodian of that, at least at the national level. How would you rate devolution, specifically because we see all these wrangles within county assemblies? Governors are being impeached, county speakers are being impeached, and it gives Kenyans the impression that there's a lot of wrangling and not much service delivery. In your opinion, as the head of the ministry that is in charge of devolution, do you feel politics might be hampering service delivery at the county level?
I think to some extent, I would say in some counties, yes. I wouldn't say that for all counties, because as you know, we have 47 counties. Those that have had very serious issues are a small number. And we've always said in any transition, you would expect those kind of push and pull. Yeah, you would expect some certain level of disagreement, because it's a new reform initiative. We've never been here before. Everybody is learning anew what their roles are. Everybody's looking for their own space. So you'd expect those wrangles. It's unfortunate that we have spent a lot of energy, especially in those counties where there's wrangling, a lot of energy that would have been channeled positively in service delivery, and we are urging all those who are involved to speedily resolve those issues so that we do not jeopardize service delivery to the Kenyan people.
What would you say is one of the successes of devolution from where you stand? What are some of the services that have been successfully devolved and you're seeing some sort of progress in that area?
I would say that of the services that have been devolved have been successfully devolved. We've had agriculture, for example, fisheries, those services are running and pretty well. We've had health devolved, it's running pretty well in most counties. There was a time there was an issue. There was I think one of the issues I always pose when it comes to health is we need to ask ourselves, in many of these counties where we say that the health structures don't look good, what were they like before devolution? Because it's possible that they were not any better, it's just that their lens was not there because we were not seeing, and the places were a bit far-flung. And when we've looked at the counties that have devolved, have effectively devolved the health functions, many of the counties are doing much better than much better than they were doing before.
Right. The Doctors' Union is asking for a health commission that would be able to take a look at human resource issues, salaries, deployment, promotions, that sort of thing. What's your take on that? Should a health commission be formed? Because they say they're essentially not opposed to devolution, just wanting the health commission in place.
I will take the advice of the constitutional experts. They've been duly advised by the Constitution implementation of the Commission on the Implementation of the Constitution that it is not constitutional to form a health service commission because there already exists a public service commission that encompasses all public servants. If you form a health service commission, what stops you from forming an agricultural service commission and then a fisheries service commission and then all these other commissions? Yes.
Okay.
So this was deliberated before the Constitution was enacted and it was agreed that the public service commission will suffice for the health sector. And so we hold that view until
so it'll handle all of those who work under the civil service. Let's move to matters of the wage bill. We're seeing increased demands from teachers, nurses, doctors, but we remember during that wage bill conference the President promised to take a pay cut. Could you update us on the progress of that? We know legislation was supposed to be in place. How far has that gone in terms of gazetting it, and is the President now earning 20% less? For that matter, are you also taking a pay cut at this moment?
I would want to say, because I know he's a man of his word and because we know that in government we do what we have committed to do, that he took the pay cut. I can't say because I don't look at his paycheck, but I believe that he has, and this has been an issue in the public. I took a pay cut immediately. It's just that recently we were informed that we should have written letters before we took the pay cut, but the pay cuts were actually effected by our HR officers immediately the announcement was done, because this is managed by our human resource officers. It's not even actually managed at your individual level. You'll just notice that there has been a pay cut. Yes, we've taken our pay cuts.
So you've also taken a pay cut? So you also earn 10% less?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Let's move to Waiguru the person. You've heard, I'm sure, a lot of descriptions about yourself. You take no prisoners in your execution of your duties. You are tough. You are no nonsense. What's your response when you hear a lot of these descriptions of yourself in this way?
I don't have a response to that. I think I have always said that when it comes to service delivery and standards, I don't compromise. So if you're one of those who are mediocre, you will actually find me a bit unrelenting in that way. Having said that, I think you cannot judge yourself. I think everybody has a differing opinion. There are those who will say that, but there are those who know you differently. It depends on in what context that you know me. But when it comes to work, I actually don't mind being known as efficient, if you ask me, and uncompromising where standards are concerned. I think it's a good thing. I wish all of us had the same reputation. I would be concerned if it was a question on integrity, for example.
Right, yes. And another description, I guess, you remind very many people of John Michuki, the late minister. And Mutahi Ngunyi has said you have the spirit of Michuki. Others say you're a Martha Karua in the making. Would you consider a career in politics?
No.
5, 10 years?
Never.
Many point to your homecoming as one that was grooming you for politics.
No, not at all. I just went for a Thanksgiving service. In fact, when we started planning for it, I thought I'd have 300 people. So I was actually surprised that it generated that amount of interest. I have absolutely no interest in politics. I don't think that will ever change. I'm a technocrat, has always been, and I will finish at technocrat level.
Okay, all right, okay, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for your time. We've been speaking to Cabinet Secretary, Devolution and Planning, Ann Waiguru, on the NYS devolution wage bill and a host of issues. And we look forward to seeing your comments of this conversation. I hand it back to Ben and Linda.
Thank you, Ivan. So, in about 2 hours' time, a group of Kenyans will be touching down at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. On the big question tonight, we are asking you, are you satisfied with the state of Kenya's Ebola preparedness?
Example, some of what some of you think. Dr. James Aduke says it is difficult to assess how well prepared Kenya is against Ebola until a case is realized.
Patrick Olushula says, is telling people to self-quarantine practical? They've missed home and will definitely mingle.
Atoya Stanley says Ebola virus sneaks into the US even despite having one of the best disease detection technology. I don't think we're prepared.
And John Jeru says we are trying hard, but loopholes are big. There's much talk and less real preparedness.
Well, those are your opinions on our big question. We thank you for participating. Keep tweeting us. We'll sample some of them during this bulletin.
For now, we take a quick break, but don't go too far. Just ahead, going an extra mile for cancer patients. That's on Outliers.
You're watching KTN Prime.
Thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Let's focus our attention on Outliers right now. As a high-flying executive at one of the world's largest multinational firms, Shaira Adamali had achieved what most people only dreamt of.
But when she was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2003, the experience not only changed her life, it has come to change the lives of thousands.
On this week's episode of Outliers, how one woman went from giving orders in the workplace to giving hope to cancer patients in Kenya.
Soft-spoken and unassuming, Shaira Adamali is the founder of the Faraja Cancer Support Center in Nairobi.
I've seen when I've been in the UK what a lot of support cancer patients get in the UK, whereas none of that was available here. So it seemed like just the right thing to do.
Before setting up the Faraja Foundation, Shaira worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers for nearly 30 years. She was a partner and head of the tax department, a successful career woman, wife and a mother. But after being diagnosed with breast cancer 11 years ago, Shaira's life took an unexpected turn that led her to choose early retirement and focus her energies on helping people facing the same battle that so distinctly changed her life.
So I think if you haven't had it, you don't appreciate necessarily how important the support is. You think that the medical treatment is all you require, whereas in fact the non-medical support is very essential.
Bright and airy, the Faraja Cancer Support Center is a tranquil and inviting space, a sharp contrast to the stark hospitals from which many of the cancer patients who come here are referred.
The government provides treatment at Kenyatta, but it's not for free. And also there are long waiting lists. Like if you need radiotherapy, there's a 9-month waiting list at Kenyatta, and 9 months is a long time in the journey of a cancer patient. When they come here and they meet other cancer patients, that in itself I think is very healing, because if you're going through chemotherapy and you've lost your hair, but you see everyone else who's going through chemotherapy has also lost their hair, then you know you're not alone.
Monica had 3/4 of her esophagus and the upper part of her stomach removed in a life-saving surgery that Faraja raised funds to pay for.
We had worked to so many corporates. We'd even tried to get to media, like my story, to be focused on media so that well-wishers can help, but it had really been a very hard task. That's why for us, Faraja gave me a second chance to live, because maybe by now I'll still be waiting at the Kenyatta queue.
Monica feels inspired to give the same gift that Shaira and Faraja gave to her to other people.
This is what I want to do now. Today I don't even sitamani kurudi shule to do the business management course again and accounting. I feel I need to also help others.
Shira plans to build a 100 million shilling medical fund, invest that money and use the income that it generates to support more patients who can't afford to pay for treatment. She's already raised 11 million shillings from well-wishers and is optimistic that she will reach her goal.
90% of the patients who are diagnosed with cancer, the biggest stress they have is the funding for the treatment. And you can do all the non-medical stuff, but if you don't help them with the financial cost of medical treatment, you haven't really removed the stress. And we would like to try and help remove as much stress as possible. I think when we set this up, we realized that a lot of people do want to help, but they want a platform from where to go and help. So when we set this up, a lot of people just came and said, can I do something? Whether it's even just to bring us tea or coffee, bring us fruit once in a week. So people want to do things, but maybe are nervous, and maybe for a lot of people they've never worked or never worked in a structured environment, so they don't know where to start. Perhaps I was lucky in that I had 31 years of experience working and felt I had the confidence to do it, yeah.
It's still a very emotional topic and difficult for Shira to talk about, but ironically, having cancer and facing the reality of death is what really taught Shira to live.
I think when something like this happens, you do stand back and reassess your life. You try and analyze why you got it. It's not because of bad luck. Maybe some of it is bad luck, but some of it could be about your lifestyle, whether it's to do with the stress you carry or your bad nutrition, lack of exercise. So for me, when I was diagnosed, I could tick off a lot of things as saying I'm doing that well, I ate well, I exercised. Maybe the bit that I didn't deal with so well was the stress. So some of the changes I've made are to stop worrying about small things, because those are the things that give you stress. There are a lot of people who I think want to continue making money. But it would be nice if there are more people who assess, now maybe this is enough for me, I'm not going to take it when I go. So it's time to give back in terms of time and giving back some money as well.
When Shira Adamali opened the doors to the Faraja Cancer Support Center, she only did it because it was the right thing to do. But for many people, walking through those doors has been the only thing that's given them a renewed sense of hope and a positive attitude for the future. Nancy Kachungera, KTN.
Great story there. So if you know someone like Shira who is doing something that truly makes a difference and deserves to be recognized, send it to it too at Kachungira. We'd love to cover your story as well.
You're watching KTN Prime. Many thanks for staying with us. We take another quick break. When we come back, Joy Doreen Bida will be bringing you the latest in business.
You're watching KTN Prime.
Welcome to KTN Business. When East African breweries introduced Senator Keg into the market, it was meant to give low-income earners an alternative to drink illicit brews. But the introduction of a 50% excise duty on the drink last year has changed the landscape, not only for EABL, but farmers growing the key ingredient for the beer, that is sorghum. KTN's Phil Kitani reports.
In 2009, Gadam sorghum was introduced in eastern Kenya for commercial production as a way for farmers to earn some income from marginal land. The hardy, high-yielding sorghum variety not only thrived in the harsh conditions, but also won a place in the hearts and the plates of local farmers.
Sababu tulikuwa tunategemea sana mahindi na mvua ikakuwa ni kidogo, tukaanza kupanda mtama.
In 2004, the government granted a remission of 30% on excise duty on beer made from sorghum, and increased to 100% in 2006. This allowed beer made from locally produced sorghum to be sold at 16 shillings per 300 ml per glass. approximately the same price as most illicit brews. But in September 2013, a new tax regime came into force through Custom and Excise Act that introduced excise duty on beer made from sorghum, millet or cassava at 50% on top of the 16% VAT that made beer attractive. The implication of the excise duty on sorghum value chain has had far-reaching consequences on both the only market for the crop and the smallholder sorghum producers.
But there's a lot of uncertainty around sorghum, which is the crop that is good for these ASAL regions, because the main market, which was the pillar for sorghum, is like collapsing, or I can say it's facing a lot of issues from the high taxations and issues that have been brought in by taxing the keg beer, which was the main driver for sorghum.
Government's key argument in introducing this task was difficulty in administrating the difference between various beer products and those made from sorghum, hence posing a threat to revenue collection. However, this argument did not take into account how small-scale sorghum producers will be affected if the demand of the sorghum, a raw material in beer production, is curtailed by the new tax regime on the sorghum beer.
Sorghum is actually a source of livelihood for these farmers. It's not just sorghum, it's a source of livelihood.
The introduction of the task and subsequent withdrawal of a major buyer in the sorghum value chain has led to income losses estimated at 3.4 billion shillings to various actors.
Watoto wetu wataendelea kuwa chokora, wazee wetu wataacha manyumba, waache watoto wao, mabibi wao, sababu ya climate change ya huku Makueni.
The incentive to produce sorghum by farmers in marginal areas was food security, and poverty is rampant was enhanced by market access offered by the East African Breweries Limited and the hope for better returns. Philip, KTN Business.
Thanks, Philip. Jimmy Bora Bank has entered a long-term financing partnership with East African Cables Limited to provide credit facilities to its cable suppliers and customers. The partnership will enable the suppliers of East Africa Cables products to take up loans with Jimmy Bora Bank when they need to restock their shops without having upfront capital. Now, cable customers will also be able to take credit from the bank to service their dues with the company after delivery of the products, payable in 90 days. The partnership will add an estimated 15,000 customers to Jimmy Bora's 300,000 customer base. And the microfinance lender has been using such partnerships to grow its reach within the market, with a similar recently signed partnership with Kenya Power being expected to bring in at least 300,000 customers every year. And the Juakali sector that contributes an estimated 20% of gross domestic product, besides being the single biggest employer in the country at over 70%, is being threatened by health challenges. Speaking at the launch of a 2-day free medical camp organized by I&M Bank for 6,000 Juakali artisans, it was revealed that most Juakali artisans are working in appalling conditions, which has seen health of many members deteriorate significantly. Exposure to noise and dust far beyond the recommended levels, lack of protective gear exposes them to numerous risks. As part of its CSR, I&M Bank has taken initiative to enable accessibility of medical services and allow their conditions to be examined and addressed. And that's all we had for you tonight on KTN Business. I'm Joy Doreen Bira. Ben Kitile is up with KTN Sports.
KTN Business.
So are you satisfied with Kenya's state of Ebola preparedness? That was a big question tonight.
Linda Marshall says not at all. First, why bring them on a public plane, then let them go home, yet incubation period is 21 days. And Exile27 on Twitter says, no, we haven't been able to contain Giga infestation, so how can we handle Ebola?
And Mohedrank says, not really, but we can't leave them isolated in a foreign country. Agriatunga says, no, our borders from Uganda, no screening, just pray that we remain lucky and never get any case locally.
Thanks for your views on the big question and for your company here on KTN Prime. Ben Kitili, have a wonderful night.
Sleep well. I'm Linda Ogutu. We'll see you tomorrow.